Hey everybody, Hoosier Jedi here with another review for you. This time I'm talking episode 15 of season 2 of Arrow called The Promise. And like the Odyssey last year, this is our big episode spent mostly in flashback on the island. And like the Odyssey, it's a pretty darn solid episode that really does a lot to explain what's going on in the modern day. So what I'm going to do is we'll talk really quick about what happens in the present, and then we'll go and talk about in a little bit more detail about what's going on in the past. Now, actually, not a whole awful lot happens in the present. Of course, we get to see Oliver's immediate reaction to like Slade being alive, and that, of course, is to try and get his mom out of there, despite the bad situation that between them. And of course, the second she's gone from the room, he immediately goes for an ice pick, which is kind of a ridiculous weapon to try and employ against Slade, but I guess it's better than nothing. And I like how Slade is really clearly just having fun toying with Oliver the whole time, just knowing that Oliver can't really do anything about it. Well, I guess Oliver could put aside his anger towards Moira and give her a little bit of a heads up on this whole thing of like, hey, I know Slade Wilson and he's not a good guy. Now, granted, he's going to have to invent some BS story as to why this is, but considering that Slade obviously plans on killing Moira and probably his sister and destroying everything that Oliver holds dear, which very well may include Queen Consolidated, and might include Walter in the equation. In fact, there's a pretty good chance that Slade is would be perfectly happy to kill Walter. Yeah, Oliver, put aside being angry at your mom and let her know this guy is a dangerous sociopath. But, of course, there's no drama if we have Oliver do something simple like that. Now, Oliver does get a cool moment where he butt dials the Arrow Cave, and everybody gets to hear it. I've kind of tried to stand up for Katie lots. A lot of people have been giving her grief online. And I'm not going to say that she's the greatest actress in the world, but I think she's done a pretty solid job so far. Now, that said, I do think she faltered somewhat with the oh my god, and Slade Wilson, he's going to kill everybody, that Oliver's entire family. That was not the most well performed scene I've ever seen on this show. But, hey, even Stephen Amell started off being kind of wooden, and even more wooden than Oliver's state really required at the beginning of this show. So, let's cut her a little slack there. Anyway, now seeing Roy and Sarah and Diggle all head out to go and save Oliver, that was really cool. And I did feel a little bit bad that all Felicity really had to do was kind of throw frightened, please save Oliver at them. But I do like that she doesn't try and go with it. It sort of says that she's learned her lesson from when they fought Clock King, that she's really not cut out for field work. And frankly, what would there really be for Felicity to do in that situation? Okay, Felicity's thing is computers, and being able to hack stuff is not going to be helpful in that situation. She's just one more potential target for Slade if she goes there. At least Roy and Sarah and Diggle all have edges that would give them a fighting chance. Now, you kind of make a case that Roy is a little bit dumb when he gives away that he has super strength to Slade immediately on his first meeting. But the whole thing in this situation is not to provoke a confrontation with Slade. If all hell breaks loose there in the Queen Mansion, there's a pretty good chance that Moira and Thea are going to be casualties. And keep in mind, Roy knows, I'm pretty sure that, it was clear that Roy knew that Thea was there. She was only a few feet away. Given that that's his girlfriend, I understand Roy's decision. And you can make the argument as well that tactically this was important. It was there to show Slade that, hey, you're not the only person with super strength around here. Then again, shouldn't Slade already know that Roy has super strength because the guy that injected Roy with the Mirakuru was basically working for him? Oh well. Anyway, so that whole scene with Sarah and Oliver and Roy there in the parlor, that was really cool. And I love how Oliver goes, "So what would you like to do now, Mr. Wilson?" And I love how when they walk out, well, Oliver walks Slade out to his car. Slade's like, "Yeah, all this crap that's been going on around here, yeah, they were working for me. What are you gonna do about it?" And I have a pretty good idea who it was that took Diggle out. But we'll talk about that more. I'm pretty sure that's going to be revealed fairly soon, so we'll save that for later. But again, this was all really about Slade going in there and taunting Oliver, and making it clear to him, yeah, I've come to deliver on that promise, and there's nothing you can do. Look, I was able to stroll right in here with your home to your home, wander around with your mother and sister, not suspecting the least little thing. And you know this has really got to be getting under Oliver's skin. And I also like that Slade was smart. He's planting these cameras around the Queen Mansion. That kind of gives him an edge on what's going on there. Now, during the little tour, Thea, who apparently is now an art expert, I have to say I thought that wasn't really very well handled, mentions two artists. One is Joe Kubert, and the other is Curt Swan. Now, Curt Swan was mentioned actually in a way, well, was referenced, I should say, on Smallville. The character of Dr. Swan, portrayed by Christopher Reeve, I think his character's full name was Curtis Swan, was basically considered the best guy to ever draw Superman. Now, Joe Kubert is a guy who's done, if I remember correctly, he's done both DC and Marvel work. Guy has a resume a mile long. He's actually founded the Joe Kubert School of Art, which, if you want to draw comic books for a living, is the place to go and study art. There's a number of comic book artist guys like John Romita Jr., Jim Balent, Adam Warren have all graduated from there. And those are just the ones that I can think of off the top of my head. I know that other very well-known comic book artists have gone to that school and graduated. So among comic book fans, it's a very, very well-regarded place. And I think that kind of covers everything that we've got going on in the present day. Now, the stuff on the island. Okay, first of all, let's kind of get one of the big things out of the way and talk about what's going on with Ivo. Now, the conversation that he had with his wife, and the fact that Felicity earlier had mentioned that her father had bugged out on her mom when she was young. This has a lot of people on Tumblr kind of going nuts, thinking like, oh God, Professor Ivo is Felicity's dad. Well, okay, that is certainly a possibility. I'm not really sure if I buy into that, just because, well, we don't know exactly how old Felicity is or how old Professor Ivo is, but he hadn't been very young when he fathered her, or I'm severely underestimating the age of Professor Ivo. I'm just kind of judging by how young the actor looks. So, okay, I freely admit I could be wrong there. And, the idea of, oh, my dad, and it's almost always the dad, is a villain. I want to be good. I want to be one of the good guys. Well, that's a time-worn tradition in comics. Lots of characters come from that. Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch, for example. Their father is Magneto. Although exactly whether or not those two are considered on the side of the heroes these days is a little ambiguous. They can never seem to really pick a side very well. But that's Marvel. Anyway, like I said, I agree. This is a possibility, but I have to wonder if maybe they're not making it just a little too easy. And you gotta admit, Felicity turning out to be Ivo's daughter would be a pretty huge coincidence. On the other hand, ridiculously large coincidences are kind of a staple of comic books, so anyway, I'm okay with the idea, but I don't really think Felicity needs to be some villain's daughter, the daughter of anybody of note, in order for her to really be a viable character, especially if she's going to achieve the destiny of becoming Oracle in this universe's version of the Birds of Prey, which is what really does seem to be shaping up as to what's going to happen with her. But still, if that is the case, it certainly gives them a good reason to bring Professor Ivo back in the modern age. And getting his hand whacked off by Slade, as one commenter pointed out, this might be the sort of thing that spurs him to take an interest in cybernetics, which could lead to a more accurate, well, basically him creating the android Amazo. Yeah, I don't think we're ever going to see that on the show. Maybe on The Flash one day, but probably not on Arrow. The reason why they keep the villains, sort of Batman level, are because those kind of villains are ones that make sense for Oliver to fight. You don't send Green Arrow out to fight Darkseid. You don't send him out to fight Ares or somebody like that. You send him out to target, fairly ordinary people or people with fairly basic superpowers. But anyway, I definitely did enjoy the training sequences. We see that Oliver is not quite there in terms of his skills, but he's getting there. And that whole line of "there was a breeze," that was pretty hilarious. And it was also a nice callback to the first episode. Another nice thing is we get to see Oliver, as a real serious archer, as a real warrior, putting on Yao Fei's hood for the first time. And of course, this is again another touchstone from Yao Fei for Shadow. We also get to see that really nice scene where they're having that last drink before everything, and Slade just sort of just kind of wants to avenge Shadow. It's kind of sad that Slade hasn't really brought up his son Joey again. Now remember, in the comics, Slade actually had 3 kids: Grant, Joey, and Rose. Grant's kind of more or less been forgotten by the comics. I don't really think he's popped up very much since he was killed back in the 1980s. And it's really Joey and Rose, Jericho and Ravager, respectively, that have really gotten the heavy play. But anyway, we'll talk more about that another time. And I like how Oliver says that if I don't make it, I want you to tell my family that I'd change, that I'd become a better person. Now here we get another reminder when Oliver talks about knowing how to act stone that yeah, Oliver was probably doing drugs back in the day, something that was alluded to more than once back in season 1. And Sarah says, well, if I don't make it, just tell my family I died on the Queen's Gambit. I want them to remember me for who I was, because this is Sarah, even before she's joined the League of Assassins, she's already had to make some really serious compromises. I mean, she basically had to make herself the apprentice to a mad scientist who tortures people for fun. Well, okay. He doesn't torture people for fun. He tortures people for science. But still, Sarah's had a hand in some nasty stuff. And of course, it's only going to get worse for her. So still, it's understandable how she would feel that way. Now, the whole thing with the true serum and that stuff that Sarah made Oliver take before he went to the plane, to the ship, that was I think a little telegraphed, but I did like it. It offered a very reasonable explanation for why Oliver didn't give away the planet. And of course, having spent a year as his assistant, Sarah would know enough about how Ivo's mind works that she would know that he'd probably go for the true serum under these circumstances. So that was some smart thinking on the writer's part. I'll give them that. And I also have to say, the whole fight sequence on the deck, that was pretty intense. That was great stuff. That, you could pretty easily call that movie quality. I saw one commenter online say that it reminded them of the final fight in BioShock Infinite. Having never played that game, I can't really speak to that, but as I said, this really does strike me as being some really top-notch work by the show. In fact, I think I read somewhere that set was the most expensive set they've ever built to use on this show, and it certainly did show. That was a great fight. Now, the whole thing with Slade turning on Oliver, well, we all knew what was going to happen there. We knew that Oliver was going to hesitate in killing Ivo, and we knew that Slade was going to overhear it, and that Ivo was going to try and six Slade on Oliver. We all knew that. But knowing something that's going to happen doesn't mean that when you see it finally happen that it's bad. It was still interesting and exciting. Now, again, Slade is maybe not being 100% rational here. I mean, even Ivo was basically trying to push most of the responsibility for what happened for Shadow's death on Oliver, even though he was the one that killed her. And Oliver, amazingly enough, is kind of going along with this to a degree. But that's only because of the intense guilt that he feels. And speaking of Shadow, I gotta say, that whole dream sequence of her, blaming Oliver and stabbing him, that was pretty cool. That was definitely a nice moment that really shows you where Oliver's mindset is. And the fact that he hasn't forgotten about Shadow, that she's still someone who has a strong place in his heart. And well, we did see that in Three Ghosts, but I think it was good that they gave us that reminder here. So anyway, now Slade has his way off the island. Who knows what's going to happen from there? If he's going to just decide, screw it, I'll get Oliver later. He's not going anywhere. Or if he's going to try and take the Amazo guys out to the island to try and take Sarah and Oliver down. Who knows? But anyway, overall, this was a really, really solid episode, and it sets up a lot of cool stuff. Now, also, this week they put out this 3-minute trailer for basically the rest of the season. And, guys, this is going to be awesome. There's so much stuff in that I am looking forward to talking to. We're going to get to a lot of it next week. And, yeah, this looks like it's going to be one hell of a ride for the rest of the season. Anyway, that's all I got for you this time. As always, please comment, rate, and subscribe. And, of course, you can follow me on Twitter @HoosierJedi. Until next time, take care and have a good one.